Alrighty, so today we're going to be talking about time zones, and in particular we're going to be looking at time zones in Australia. So even within our own country, we don't all live in the same time zone. Why? It'd be really annoying because Australia is actually quite a large country, right? We're made up of a few different states and a few different territories. Now we try to make it as easy as possible for ourselves, but in the end, we're all slightly different. So, just to kind of give you the global perspective for a second, the prime meridian that runs through the middle of the UK, it's not only the job of this to actually monitor which is east and which is west, it also is zero in the UTC scale, which is the Universal Coordinated Time. No, I'm not writing it. It's not UCT, it's actually UTC, but it stands for Universal Coordinated Time. Alrighty? And so countries are either plus or minus in comparison to the UK. So here in Australia, and in particular where we live here in Mackay, well, we're in plus 10 land, which means that if it's, say, 2 p.m. here, well, then it's going to be 12 a.m. here, because that's 10 hours ahead of UK. If we go on the left-hand side, let's take, I don't know, once again, my beautiful picture of America. All the Canadian islands go out there, and then Alaska. Right, in the US, they might have a time zone around here, which might be minus 8 hours or something like that, okay? So let's talk about Australia. Well, even within Australia, we have different time zones for each of the different states, including the territory. So let's put a little ACT here, Northern Territory up here, South Australia and WA. So we have WA, we have NT, we have SA, Queensland, NSW, Victoria, little ACT, and Tassie. Let's make Tassie a little bit bigger. Tassie. Alrighty, so these are the different states in Australia, and each of them have slightly different time zones. So we break it up into thirds essentially. So we have these are the kind of markers. Now we have, in Western Australia, we use UTC plus 8. For Northern Territory and South Australia, we use UTC plus 9.5. So you'll see this a few different ways. So it's 9.5 or 9:30, right? Either way, it's 9 hours and 30 minutes or 9.5. And as I said before, in the East Coast, which includes us where we are at the moment, it is plus 10. So all the way up and down the coast, it's the same thing. Why? It's because the sun rises at different times. So it's actually going to rise slightly earlier for us here in Queensland than it is for someone over in Perth. I know I drew a spot of Brisbane, but it doesn't really matter, right? So there's a few more complications though, however, because some of the states observe daylight savings, which means that it changes. Now, daylight savings happens in each summer, okay? And when they do, that pushes you forward an hour. Now, there's a few ways I can talk about it, but the ones that do observe daylight savings are all of the southern states. So South Australia, New South Wales, ACT, Victoria, and Tasmania all do have, they're ahead 1 hour, we call it daylight savings, during summer. Alrighty, so in Australia we have 3 time zones most of the time. However, during summer, New South Wales, ACT, Victoria, and Tasmania are all 1 hour ahead, which would take them to UTC plus 11 because they're at plus 10, plus 1 hour is plus 11. And for South Australia during daylight savings, it will be plus 10:30, which means that during summer, South Australia is actually ahead of Queensland because Queensland's always UTC plus 10 whole year round. So let's see if we can play around with this. Alrighty, so if it's 3:20 p.m. on a Tuesday in Mackay, Queensland, what time is it in Perth, Western Australia, Adelaide, South Australia in August, and Adelaide, South Australia in January. Alrighty, so setting out. I like to do a lot of setting out. So when I want to do something like this, I always put the day, the time, whether it's AM or PM. You can use 24-hour if you feel more comfortable, but it's up to you. I put the location, and I put the time zone. So UTC plus 10 because we're in Queensland. Alrighty. So then after that, I always put the place we're going to. So we're going from Mackay time, we're converting it to UTC. Well, for Adelaide is plus 9:30. And in August, it is just 9:30 because August is not summer. So it's plus 9:30. So how do I get from 10 to 9:30? Well, it's subtract 30 minutes, right? So it's backwards 30 minutes. That's what we're going. So let's do that here. Let's subtract 30 minutes. Well, 30 minutes off 3:20 is going to be 2:50 p.m. and it's still going to be Tuesday. So let's put Tuesday, and that's in Adelaide. However, that's B. That's B. That's definitely B. Let me move that down, and let's do A first. Let's try that again, but for A. So for A, same thing. So it's Tuesday, it's 3:20 in Mackay, and it's UTC plus 10, and we want to go to Perth. It's good to know where we actually want to go. Now for Perth, we're going to UTC plus 8. If you don't believe me, you can have a look at the map. It's UTC plus 8 for Perth, because it's in WA. And so how do we get from 10 to 8? Well, we're going backwards, so it's going to be subtract. And how many are they different? It's 2 hours. So we're going backwards 2 hours. So let's subtract 2 hours. Well, let's make sure we've got our units. So it's PM. And 2 hours off that is going to be 1:20 PM. Still on Tuesday. We haven't changed day. So at 3:20 p.m. in Mackay, it would be 1:20 p.m. in Perth. And for Mackay and Adelaide, at 3:20 p.m. in Mackay, it'll be 2:50 p.m. in Adelaide. But that's during not summer. So for C in January, well, January is summertime, which means that the UTC is not going to be 9:30. It's actually going to be 10:30. So for C, we start on Tuesday, 3:20 p.m. in Mackay, UTC plus 10. We want to go to Adelaide, but this time with daylight. So it's always plus an hour. So we get UTC plus 9:30 plus the hour. So that's actually 10:30. And how do we get from here to here? Well, 10:30 is actually ahead of 10, so it's going to be plus, and it's just by plus 30 minutes. So on a Tuesday when it's 3:20 p.m. in Mackay, plus 30 minutes, well, that's going to be 3 hours and 50 minutes p.m. Tuesday. This may seem like overkill in terms of the working out now. However, in the future, it's going to make it much easier to keep track of everything. Alrighty, so that is time zones in Australia. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.